Hey everyone, Matt here from Docs Running, and today we're going to do a comparison review or should I upgrade episode of the Nike Structure 25 versus the new Nike Structure 26. So the Structure has been the primary stability shoe in the Nike lineup for many, many years. Some people would argue the Infinity is also a stability shoe. It's not, but it has a little stable elements, but really it's been the Structure for a long, long time. Some of the other stability shoes were actually great, but they disappeared, and so the Structure has remained, although it's actually like gone in and out, and for a long time I thought it was actually discontinued, but it's still around. Version 24 was kind of weird. It kind of got this weird stable neutral thing where I wasn't really sure if it was stability or not. Version 25 came back and actually had this large midfoot sidewall as part of a midfoot support system. And then version 26, they overhauled it completely. And these are two different shoes. So the purpose of this is to help you figure out which one might work better for you because they are different. Do you want the firmer ride of the 25? Do you want the softer ride of the 26? They're not the same, so let's talk about this and help you figure out which one might work better. So as always, we're gonna start off with specs in my men's size 10. So in the sizes for weight, the weights actually came in, for my measurements, the same. So both of them came in at about 11 ounces or about 310 grams, which is different from what Nike lists for size 10, which I think they said 11.3 ounces, but same weight apparently. Stack height is slightly different. 37 in the heel, 27 in the forefoot for a 10 millimeter drop over in version 25. Version 26 gets 1 millimeter more stack height, apparently 38 in the heel, 20 in the forefoot, but still a 10 millimeter drop. Now that slight similarity is where things start to change because the midsoles are really different, feel different. Version 25 had full length Cushlon, which is one of the Nike's more standard foams, with a zoom unit in the heel and the forefoot. And what that felt like is it starts off as a firm shoe, and I have 100 miles on this, and I never did a 100-mile review just because I didn't know if people would care. And so I guess you're gonna get a little bit now. It starts off really firm. It's not a soft cushion ride. Once the zoom units and the foam breaks in, it gives a little bit of softer heel and a snappy forefoot, but it's still on the firmer end for a lot of shoes. Whereas now with the full-length React X midsole and no zoom units, version 26 has a much smoother ride and a much softer ride. It's not the softest ride on the market, but it's certainly softer than where it was previously. So if you want something a little firmer, version 25, you want something a little bit softer, version 26. The other thing that's really interesting about this is the softest in the React X. React X just doesn't respond very quickly for me. Version 25, it's not light. These are both heavier shoes, but at least I could feel like I could turn my legs over a little bit. It's felt, and just probably because of the upper and the way the shoe is designed, just felt a little snug and weirdly slightly nimble despite being heavier end. That's not the case with version 26. It's a larger shoe. It feels like it. It's a much wider sole, wider midfoot, which actually helps the stability quite a bit compared to version 25. And it just feels a little bit more blocky initially in the heel and midfoot, and then it starts to improve. So there is a posterior lateral bevel in version 26. Version 25 didn't have that and was a little bit clunky until this thing broke in. Version 26 has a smoother transition once the shoe breaks in, and one of the things that makes it feel a teeny bit clunky is not just it's a little bit wider in the sole, which a wider sole is going to feel a little bit more stiff as it breaks in, but there's also a much larger lateral guide rail, or whatever you want to call this, midfoot support system or lateral heel support system, whatever you want to call it, top line sidewall. Much larger one in the lateral here in version 26, version 25. So that does, give you a little bit more lateral stability, but it just makes this shoe feel a little bit more clunky initially, and then that breaks in after about 25, 30 miles, which is exactly the number of miles that I have on it. I'm like, oh, okay, now it's finally starting to feel better. From a stability standpoint though, these two feel very different. With version 25, it was still kind of like that stable neutral kind of thing, but most of the stability really came in the medial midfoot with the midfoot support system. But the rest of the shoe I wouldn't call overtly stable. They had a really nice thing with the zoom unit, and I don't think this was intentional. You have something called a transverse arch in the front of your foot. Everybody talks about the medial arch. There's a transverse arch that if you can lift that up a little bit, it actually creates stability for the forefoot, and that's what it felt like the zoom unit did up here. I really like that because I need some forefoot stability. Other people might find that really irritating, like there was something stuck underneath their foot. If you didn't like that, version 26 doesn't have that. No zoom units, a little bit more flexibility in the forefoot. This was a teeny bit stiffer, so a little more flexibility, a little softer, a little smoother transition, just not as snappy or quick feeling off the foot, and just much more relaxed overall. But from a stability standpoint, this is much more prevalent in terms of the stability. And I already mentioned the lateral side, the midfoot and the heel. It feels like there's a post there without being overly aggressive. Medial posts typically feel a little bit firm from a stability standpoint. This just feels like this nice thing cushioning up along the medial side of your arch, and it's there no matter how long you've run. I take this on a long run. I've also walked and stood all day in this shoe, and it does the same thing. So walking, standing, Also really good shoe for that, not as good in 26 or 25. 25 is a little bit better for purely running. Version 26 has better versatility for running, walking, standing, and just has a much more comfortable supportive fit. Yes, it's got a teeny bit of guidance because I think this lateral sidewall does offset and prevent people from being pushed too far lateral in the heel, but if you want a classic medially supported midfoot and heel, version 26 is going to be the way better option. Now finally, the upper is where things also get different. The upper was pretty thick here and felt kind of like a casual shoe in version 25. The heel counter was also super aggressive. While I got 100 miles, this heel counter irritated my Achilles a ton, or my heel bone a ton of times. I like the rest of the shoe. That was just too much. Version 26 has more of a true engineered mesh upper. There's a ton of padding around the heel. The counter's a little bit more flexible. So people with the Haglund deformities, you're actually probably gonna do fine. If you have insertional Achilles tendinopathy, the foam does like sit over the edge of your heel and push in there, so that can be irritating. That's what I have right now. It's doing better, but just be a little bit wary of that. It hasn't bugged me too much. The heel counter's fine. And the rest of the fit, actually, there's a little bit more room. If you found version 25 did not have quite enough room because it's a little bit snug, there's a little bit more room in version 26 for people that need a little more volume, a little more width, but it's still a fairly normal to slightly snug fitting shoe compared to a little bit more snug and narrow fitting with version 25. But different shoes. I've really enjoyed version 26 as an easier shoe with a little bit more medial support. I really enjoyed 25 because it just felt a little bit snappier in the foot. Could both of them lose a little bit with weight? Yes, but that's where I'm hoping the Structure Plus is going to come in. We'll have to see what the Structure Premium looks like. Maybe that'll be a max stability shoe from Nike. We haven't had one of those in a long time, but I'm really curious to see what happens with those. But in the meantime, hopefully that helps you make a choice. I'm really enjoying version 26 because it is more comfortable overall compared to version 25, but that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments below, do you agree or disagree? The whole point of this is to be able to educate people and help them figure out what's the best thing for them and teach them. So the more people that comment, the more people that are gonna be able to see, oh, okay, here's this person's, here's this stuff. So hopefully someone can find someone similar to them, because the whole point of this is to help people learn, figure out what works best for them so they can focus on the run and not get hurt.